Now, Deputy John Brady, you have just over 6 minutes.
Thanks, Count Corla. Minister, last week I received a phone call from an old-age pensioner named Stephen from my constituency of Wicklow. He lives in Arklow, Minister. The day before, he had buried his wife, who he had been married to for many, many years. The day after that, he received a bill, which I have a copy of here, from Irish Water, demanding €324.64. The bill is not that high because of the excessive water usage of Stephen. It's because he simply wasn't in a position to pay that bill from the outset. That bill followed on from a series of texts and phone calls from Irish Water. In 1 week alone, he received 9 phone calls from Irish Water, pressuring him into giving something simply that he hadn't got. Minister, Stephen is one of the 755,570 people living in this state in poverty. This is an unbelievable rise of 55,000 citizens since your party, Fine Gael, came into power in 2011. His plight and the plight of many of the most vulnerable in society has come under constant attack from this government, from your regressive policies. And the abolishment of the bereavement grant in 2013 was one of the meanest, most ruthless and uncompassionate cuts imposed by your party, and has made it very difficult, if not impossible, for people like Stephen to bury their loved ones with dignity. The elderly have seen the abolition of the telephone allowance, a lifeline especially for those living alone in rural Ireland. They've seen increased prescription charges and have left many picking and choosing which medication they can or cannot have. They've seen a reduction in the household benefits and the cutting of the fuel allowance from 32 weeks down to 26 weeks, and that has had a devastating impact on people like Stephen right across this state. And currently, here in Ireland, we have the largest levels of excess winter mortality anywhere in Europe, with an estimated fatality rate of 2,800 excess deaths each winter. The imposition of water charges have compounded the hardship on some of the most vulnerable people in our society and have impacted disproportionately on low-income families. While the government can talk about the GDP growth and being the fastest growing economy in Europe, we are also a country with 1.3 million people experiencing deprivation. According to the CSO figures, 750,000 people living in poverty here in this state. And in research carried out by the Mandate Trade Union, 1 in 10 people are experiencing food poverty. That's nearly 500,000 citizens in this state suffering from food poverty, Minister. The terms of reference for the expert commission need to be expanded to include issues such as how to avoid water poverty. Where water charges have been introduced, water poverty levels have escalated. Almost a quarter of households in England and Wales experience some levels of water poverty due to water charges imposed on people there. Water, Minister, is a basic human right and not a commodity. Minister, Stephen and his recently deceased wife were 2 of many thousands of people that marched in Wicklow and right across this state, not for the suspension of the water charges, but for the total abolition of the charges. Minister, and a message to Fianna Fáil, Stephen also revealed to me in his conversation last week that he felt he was unfortunately hoodwinked, particularly by Fianna Fáil, as he voted for them in the general election, believing that they would follow through on their manifesto, promising to scrap water charges. And that, Fianna Fáil, was something he was certainly very, very embarrassed to admit to me, that he actually voted for Fianna Fáil. However, it's not too late for you in Fianna Fáil to do the right thing and to stand by your election promise and to get rid of Irish Water and the water charges once and for all. Many people, through intimidation and coercion, reluctantly paid their water charges, effectively paying a third time for such a basic human right. Minister, these payments must be repaid to anyone that has paid this tax to date, and I'm calling you to initiate that process with immediate effect. Minister, it is also critically important that our water services remain in public ownership, to stop water becoming a commodity for the capitalist profiteers. The Minister, has said the government wants to keep our water services in public ownership. Frankly, I have no faith in your words or in the words of this government, and certainly there's no guarantee that the next government, whoever they may be, bar Sinn Féin, would do so either. The only way to ensure that our water services remain in public ownership is to set a date for a referendum and enshrine it in our constitution. And there's no reason why that date cannot be set with immediate effect. We don't need to have the findings of a commission. I'll finish on this, Cathaoirleach. Minister, people like Stephen need a break. They don't need to be another negative statistic, consigned to live out the rest of his life in fear and deprivation because of the regressive policies of your party and the party over here on my left. Minister, do the right thing.
Thank you, Deputy.
Abolish the charges with immediate effect. Enshrine the right to the ownership of water in our constitution, and that can be done with immediate effect. You're eating into
Deputy O'Sullivan's time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Time, because I won't need